I would like to invite Mr. Valery Pyatnytsky, the trade representative of Ukraine, the person who knows everything about association agreement, about EU and Ukraine, about the economic part of it, and he will tell us about the specific features of implementation of the agreement. I would like to congratulate you with the ratification of the agreement. The floor is yours. Good afternoon. Really, we had quite an outstanding event, which we have been waiting for so long. That's ratification of the agreement in total, and it is important that today the government continues this work, and the action plan, the plan of implementation of the association agreement was approved, which is also an important document from the point of view of how the process of implementation will be organized, how the agreement will be implemented, and how all the bodies of power are interacting. First of all, the executive bodies, but that does not mean that this is it. We can talk about important role of the Verkhovna Rada, and Verkhovna Rada has made important steps, having made amendments to the legislation which are directed towards implementation of the association agreement with the EU, and it all will depend on how efficiently we work. And the implementation efficiency will depend on that as well. The Prime Minister, in his speech at the meeting of the Cabinet of Ministers, mentioned that the government will be doing everything possible to implement it as soon as possible, talking about the action plan and the time frame. Of course, there will be certain transitional periods which are reflected in the body of the agreement, and that means that this will be a lot of work of not just Ukrainian experts, but European experts as well. But the government will be doing everything possible for this process to be dynamic, so that the reforms planned are implemented as soon as possible, so that the first results are felt in the nearest future. And I believe that that's what we'll be concentrating our work on implementation of the provisions of the agreement, and this will be a backbone for the work of the government. I'm ready to answer your questions if you have them. And I believe that in this context, maybe you will learn more than what I have shared with you now. 1+1 TV channel, please explain what items of the agreement are delayed for a year, besides the asymmetric duty. What else? Can you enumerate what else is delayed and will start working in a year? Everything will be implemented if we are talking about implementation of the agreement. Everything that is ratified, but talking about reduction of duty, Ukraine will not have to reduce the duty, but there are provisions related to that. They will not be effective because they're not needed now. But everything that is needed for ensuring autonomous preferences will be, we will not reduce duty for cars, for example. There are articles which introduce a dual mechanism. This mechanism which will be applied by Ukraine. If we reduce the duty, then the numbers of cars imported will be increased. So this norm will not be working. We will not be able to see how many European cars get to Ukrainian market, because we do not have to reduce the duty. The same concerns the second-hand goods, the clothes. We will not have to introduce import prices. But if you want to realize autonomous preferences, you have to respect the rule of origin. If you issue wrong certificate of origin, then you will suffer because you will not be allowed to European market. The markets related to application of anti-dumping instrument, anti-subsidies, they are acting, but they do act today. The basis for the trading part of any agreement, this as well, are the norms of the WTO. We will be observing them in the future. Interfax Ukraine. Could you please comment on the statement of Ulukayev as to possibility of introducing from the 1st of November the duty for Ukraine? I hope you saw the text of trilateral statement. That text is in English and in Ukrainian on the website of the Ministry of Economy, and one of the items is introducing autonomous preferences from European Union that allows Ukraine not to use the reduction of duty, and an important item, the parties which means Ukraine and Russia will continue to apply the norms of the agreement on free trade of CIS. It sounded strange for me immediately after on Friday we approved this joint statement at the level of ministers, Mr. Ulukayev and Karl de Gucht and Mr. Klimkin. After that, to make a statement that we do not know because of which reasons the Russian Federation wants to introduce the duty of the CIS's regime, I do not understand it, because that means that this will mean that they are coming out of that agreement. But is it possible to introduce amendments into the text of the agreement which has been ratified? To say whether it is possible to introduce amendments or not. The agreement has been ratified. Nothing has been changed in it. The agreement has been ratified. Nothing is changed in it. Then a new life of this agreement is open, because the rules which act in the European market, they change this way or that way. The rules which act in international markets, they also change. And depending on whether it's needed, whether it's rational to approximate Ukrainian rules to the rules of the European Union and the world, depending on that, we will initiate something. If European side sees that something is to be improved, they will do that. But that does not mean that there will be some big changes happening every day in this agreement. The agreement is called Deep and Comprehensive. It's drafted in detail. It's quite comprehensive. And the changes could be of different nature. At a certain stage, the parties will decide that the sphere of liberalization of the market of services is not sufficient. We have an agreement which has been drafted for the sphere of services. That is the agreement on free airspace. It's separate. If we develop the relations, cooperation in this sphere, it may change. There are financial services, telecommunication services, and the cooperation will develop, and if that requires some changes, they will be introduced. But of course, there are changes, different types of changes. If there are certain directives, and if they are changed, and if new are passed, that doesn't mean that the agreement has to be changed radically. For the parties, there is the institutional mechanism, the Council on Cooperation, the Committee, the Political and Trade, and then subcommittees. And via the implementation of the agreement, via permanent cooperation, we will understand what needs to be changed, what needs to be simplified. In this case, this is a living organism, and there will be changes. 10 years for implementation is long time, so it's impossible not to change anything. And to what extent the practice of such compromises, talking about the duty, is used in relation to other countries. I cannot say that that's a compromise. No. European Union doesn't come to any compromise. They stretch the hand of assistance to us. There is this practice as part of WTO framework. It was applied to Moldova, for example. This has been applied in cases like Pakistan. There were autonomous preferences provided after very destructive earthquake. You need to understand that European Union agreed to such steps. That's not unprecedented, but they agreed to that, understanding all the economic difficulties we have. That's the hand of assistance. If we look at it in figures, the Prime Minister mentioned, that's about $500 million reductions for us, but that's $500 million of not credit, not loan, because the loan is to be paid back. It's like a grant, but the grant which will be distributed to all the producers who supply to the European market, and these benefits, these achievements will be received by the companies which operate in the Ukrainian market, and indirectly others who cooperate with these companies. So that will cover the whole territory of Ukraine, the whole economy. If we take $500 million for the country like Ukraine, that's probably not too much, but that is one of the elements of assistance. European Union provides not just this assistance, microfinancial, technical, budgetary support for different spheres. And now there are many sensitive spheres, phytosanitary and others. They get significant support from European Union so that the companies can get adapted to new rules and new conditions. Interfax, one more question as to free trade zone with Russia, with CIS. Could you assess its efficiency? You know, if we look at figures, we can say that the volume of trade is dropping, going down. And there are different reasons to that. In different cases, that's different percentage of decrease. With Belarus, it's more or less at the same level. With Kazakhstan, it dropped, our export dropped by more than 50%. Because we don't have a common border, and that's the issue of transit. With Russian Federation, just in this period starting from January this year, more than by 30%. What's the efficiency of this mechanism? The restrictive measures applied by Russian Federation are discriminative. Very often they act violating the agreements provided for by the free trade agreement. But we can step away from CIS agreement, but that's not just Russia. We cannot probably stop participating in different committees and different meetings, summit meetings, and so on. But in these conditions, at the high level, there might be certain reservations as to participation of Ukraine. But talking about working groups, different committees, which discuss the issues of the rule of origin, sanitary control, phytosanitary control, just to state the position, to argue with those who create obstacles. This should be done, but this should be done professionally, not just going there with diplomatic démarche, state that and leave the forum. Because now we are working all the time on improving the rules of origin. That's normal. they say sort of they are not satisfied by the norms of rules of origin between us and European Union. But that's nonsense. These are our bilateral rules. But that is what we need to discuss at the forum, and the forum is multilateral. So from my point of view, trade, I don't want to say that it should stop, should be the last to stop, even in complicated conditions. We have war. Russia is invading, but talking about CIS, we do have trade relations, and they are to be used as some platform to protect own market. So I believe that we will continue this work. We will continue it pragmatically. We understand that even this decrease hasn't stopped Ukrainian export. And talking about the volumes of production which are related to export is important. We need to work on diversification. We need to find alternatives. If we find 100% alternative, this will be ideal. Today I may say that with the decrease of the volume of supply to the market of Russian Federation, we diversified by supplies to other markets. 60% of that is replaced, not just to European market, but like New Caledonia, some African countries, Congo, Somalia, Sudan, and so on. Ukrainian business isn't waiting for some privileges from anyone. Ukrainian business is used to survive, to fight for competitiveness, and we need to help it. That is our task. Any other questions? If you don't have any more questions, then I would like to thank Mr. Pyatnytsky. Thank you.